Morning. We are headed first thing to cut some wheat today.
But Andy, you said you guys haven't grown winter wheat in decades. That's very true. As a matter of fact, we may not even grow corn and beans this year if it doesn't rain in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I know. I can't get anything past you guys. I'll give you a hint right here. This video is going to be something very special. I'd appreciate it if you could tune into the whole thing. Drop a comment if you want to leave some feedback, and of course like the video to help spread it a little bit. That's going to be it for our farm though. I got to hit the road or I'm going to be late for my date with a combine. After a short 45-mile trek to the southeast of Mattoon, we've made it to our final destination, Palestine, Illinois. And you may recognize this combine.
Is that ringing any bells with anyone? Look familiar? Some of you may be familiar with Farm Rescue from my video earlier in the spring where we talked about it. You may have seen some of the other YouTubers who've made videos featuring Farm Rescue like Millennial Farmer did last fall. He helped harvest some crops for a farm family that was dealing with some health issues. Today, Farm Rescue's down with their equipment in my neck of the woods, helping out a farm family who suffered some tremendous devastation from a tornado back in March.
What we are doing today is fairly obvious. We're helping a farm family in need cut some wheat. The question is why, which I'm about to show you. Some of you may recall a day last March where I was talking about a high chance of tornadoes across Illinois. I mentioned that us, located in Mattoon, were pretty fortunate to have skirted by south and north of any kind of tornadoes that went through. However, one tornado that we did see cause some massive devastation came through the Robinson into Palestine area, which is why we're here. The Pfeiffer family, which is a well-established multi-generational farm here in the Palestine area, was very unfortunate and took the brunt of this tornado, along with a lot of other people in the path. As a matter of fact, a few people actually lost their life.
Prior to that fabled day in March, all of this equipment right here was in perfect working order. What you see is the result of that tornado coming through this farmstead and absolutely devastating some of their farm equipment. Tractors, planters, tillage equipment, draper, even a house that one of the younger family members was living in was directly affected by this fairly strong tornado. You can actually see that even 4 months later, they're still hard at recovering from the damages created by that storm. I assume at one point in time this was an operational 9370R. I'd say it's totaled now. Imagine trying to rewire that mess. 9520T. Definitely a goner. 1770 60-foot planter, crinkled in two. You're not fixing that. It actually appears the tornado may have literally rolled this Kuhn Krause Landsman on its side. Look at that wheel frame right there, just bent up. Oh yeah, she's all twisted up. Jeez. You just got to think that this is a very healthy portion of this farm's livelihood right there. These are the tools of the trade that help them prepare the land, put a crop in, and take a crop out. And it is completely totaled. Not to mention that it's fairly hard to cut wheat when your draper's in this kind of shape. On top of this, both of their combines suffered severe damage. It almost makes me sick to my stomach to know that a family farm had to endure this kind of loss of equipment. Obviously, they were fortunate that there was no loss of life in this location, but at the same time, talk about derailing your crop yield. Look at what it did to the tongue of that planter. The main draft tube crinkled it like an empty can of soda. Showcasing damage to intimate parts of a family's operation like this seems like I'm overstepping my boundary a little bit here, but the reason I'm here is not to show you this damage or to really dance on the graves of all of their equipment. What I want you to see though is the value that an organization like Farm Rescue provides to the farming community as a whole. Farm Rescue exists to bridge the gaps to farmers who find themselves on the worst of luck. Whether your farm has been damaged by a natural disaster, tornado, wildfire, maybe someone in your family is suffering from severe health issues, Farm Rescue will come in and bridge that gap with no strings attached to plant or seed your crop. They'll feed your livestock. Whatever that farm may need to get to the next step of the healing process when their equipment's back in working order, if someone's recovered from their health issues, the next generation stepped in, the next tenant's gonna take over. Regardless of whatever the scenario is, Farm Rescue lives to come in and help farms that are in trouble, just like the Pfeiffer farm here in Palestine, Illinois. As a fellow multi-generational farmer that runs very similar equipment in a similar geography to these people, it feels very close to home to see all of this equipment tied up like this, destroyed. And I know exactly how I would have felt
coming out from our basement to see our farm just completely leveled like this. Knowing that an organization like Farm Rescue is there to reach down and give your farm a helping hand to recover from all of this really makes me feel a lot better.
Let's be very blunt. All of this farm equipment can be easily replaced, albeit not always in a timely fashion, especially when it happens at the end of March and planting season's right around the corner. Farm Rescue came into this farm and a few other farms in the area to help them plant their spring crops. They brought tractors, volunteers, and of course planting equipment to get the job done. Farm Rescue has no agenda other than getting the farm back on their feet from whatever seems to be ailing them. I would not wish this kind of damage to a farmstead on anyone. At the same time though, I'm glad that organizations like Farm Rescue are around to make sure that they can keep going, to get the crop in, and to keep farming for years and years to come.
One of the best parts about Farm Rescue is that it's entirely funded by donations from people like you and I, as well as corporations that are involved in the ag industry. On top of that, a majority of their workforce, with the exception of a few full-time people, is volunteer help. They bring in fully trained volunteers and their own fleet of equipment to the area if they need to plant or harvest your crop, and they will do it exactly how you want it done. In and of itself, that is the entire purpose of this video, is to bring more attention to Farm Rescue and all the tremendous efforts it makes to help sustain the farm community. If there's any way that you feel that you can support Farm Rescue, head over to farmrescue.org and find out more about the organization. Okay, I'll leave that alone for now. Let's go help this family cut some wheat. The best part about wheat is that I know just enough to hold a conversation, but not enough to bore you all.
I can tell you they've got 440 acres of wheat, we've done 180. The next field, the last field's like 105. I don't know how big the one is wheat is. We're killing 96 years, 4 heads.
This is my kind of outfit right here. You show up and everything's ready to go for you. They even take the ends off of the field. Fairly dry wheat, 11%. It's cutting pretty easy, although it's filled pretty tremendously in spots, so this S790 is about giving her all she's got. This is something that a lot of you probably have not seen very much of. 15-inch row planted wheat. And it doesn't seem to be holding the yield back. It's doing anywhere from 0 to 110 bushels per acre. Although I'm arguably an experienced combine operator, I've actually never cut wheat before, so this is a first for me. The only thing I've ever done with wheat is bale straw, which is arguably less exciting and enjoyable than actually cutting it in a brand new S790 combine. They're trying not to run a bunch of the straw through. It's wrapping up quite a bit of material. I really don't know if I'm supposed to be doing something different with the reel settings or if that's normal for cutting wheat kind of high. We're getting all of the heads, that's not an issue. Just sending a lot of straw through at times. They aren't baling this, they're going to be coming in shortly and no-tilling in double crop soybeans. The one aspect that goes unsaid is how important local farm communities are to making something like this happen. Farmers are usually very reluctant to ask for help, Oftentimes they need the persuasion of a neighbor or a community member to help turn their name in if they need some kind of supportive activity on their farm. If you know of anyone who has something happen, whether natural disaster, health, anything under the sun, and could use help from an organization like Farm Rescue, do not be shy. Submit their number, submit their information to Farm Rescue. They're not just going to show up. They will inquire. They will do their due diligence to make sure they're not going to overstep their boundaries and make sure that that family gets back up on their feet if they're in need. I'm not a big wheat guy, and I also don't know how well the active yield system on this combine does in wheat. I mean, it's throwing out 80, 90, 100, 110 plus bushels. The zero I joked about earlier was in a spot that had drowned out, so obviously there's not going to be wheat there. Doesn't matter how hard you try or how qualified of an operator you are, there's always going to be a pass of shame. I guess some of you probably aren't familiar with wheat yields. Like I said, I'm not a wheat connoisseur by any means. We usually just grow corn and soybeans, although I would love to grow some wheat. There's a little bit of in our area that also double crops some soybeans after it. That's pretty much the secret for success on wheat, assuming you don't get an early frost that kills your soybeans and then kills your profit potential. Regardless, good wheat is probably anything over 70 bushels an acre. Great wheat is anything over 90 to 100 bushels an acre. If I had to equate that to corn, 100 bushel wheat is probably like 250 bushel corn. I could be wrong. Wheat guys, correct me in the comments. And if you're from the Dakotas, you don't count. If you're from Illinois, tell me what you think. Right now, we have the privilege of running a brand new John Deere S790 combine on some nice LSW floater tires that provide a pretty smooth ride. We're cutting with an also brand new RDF40 Draper from John Deere. Obviously, it's in rigid mode since we're cutting wheat above ground. This is the same type of header we would cut soybeans with, but we'd have it in flex mode because we need to cut lower in the ground to get all of our soybeans. Disregard all the fancy features of new equipment. The most important part is always the foot pegs. Cutting wheat for the first time reminds me that I've always wanted to go do some custom wheat harvesting, go on the Great Wheat Run through the Great Plains. I may have missed my opportunity on that one for about 20 to 25 years, seeing as I've got a small child, another child on the way, and who knows how many more after that. It'd be a neat experience, it's hard to argue that, if you enjoy sleeping in campers and cutting wheat all day. I'm sure there's a lot of frustrations along the way. Although maybe if you're just running a combine and have no other care in the world, it wouldn't be that bad. Wheat may not always be the most profitable crop. It's hard to argue though, it doesn't look good even if it's losing money. If this were my dad's combine, I'd go into the screen and change a bunch of the settings to screw with them when he got back behind the wheel. These guys seem pretty nice though. I'm not going to be mischievous to them. They do things the same way down this way. Gotta hurry to get that last truckload to the elevator. Farm Rescue style. Farm Rescue ought to get an express lane at the elevator for what they're doing for people. Alrighty, we finished up another field of cutting wheat. Just like riding a bike. That wasn't too bad. On to the next field of wheat. This farm rescue organization is no joke. They're more than just here for show. They're getting a lot of work done helping this farm out with their wheat harvest, and it's going well. They keep the hammer down, get the job done, that way they can get on to the next person who needs some assistance. Currently the combines are getting staged to cut here behind the main farmstead that took the brunt of that tornado damage. It's a fairly large farm. They're gonna get started on it. As a matter of fact, I think that Farm Rescue is gonna come out as an organization with some of their sponsors and have a little bit of a celebration because this specific family is the 1,000th farm they've helped in crisis. Yeah, you heard that right. Not 10th, not 100th, 1,000th. 1,000 families they've reached their hand down to help up when they're in need. There's definitely something inspiring about that an organization would exist to keep farm families going when times are tough. Looks like they're shutting her down for the evening. Everything seems to be rolling pretty smoothly. Wheat's dry, cutting easy, yielding decently, or at least I assume. The only bad part is that this field is right in line with the tornado path, so you spend a pretty decent amount of time, and probably a lifetime, of picking up all sorts of debris out in the field. I already found a few 2x4s that coincidentally were nail side up. Seems to be the way they always land after a tornado's gone through and blown them all over the place. I think we've pretty much reached the end of the line for our participation in the 1,000th family help by Farm Rescue. Harvest is a little different when you're just sitting supervising and not actively a part of the harvesting process. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, I think I've reached the end of the line here on my volunteering to help, or maybe even slow down, the 1,000th case that Farm Rescue's worked on. They've got a little bit left to do, which I think they're going to get started on at the beginning of the week. It's awesome to see an organization like this in action. It's neat to interact with the full-time Farm Rescue people, Ben and Luke, as well as the volunteers on this operation, Mike and Barry. It takes quite the crew to get things done. They usually keep a fully qualified person at every job to make sure things are done to the highest quality, and they usually staff the rest with volunteers. Volunteers are obviously an essential part of an outfit like this, so if you have some free time, maybe a little bit of experience, joining the Farm Rescue crew at a local opportunity would be a great way to contribute to the organization if you're interested. After seeing this total devastation here at the Pfeiffer farm and their need for help with their farming operations, it makes me appreciative of the safety of our farm over the last few years and the luck we've had to miss some of these major storms. You never know when it could be you or someone you know and love. If you know of anyone, do not hesitate to go over to farmrescue.org and send their information over. Like I said earlier in the video, they will not pester them. If the farmer doesn't want help, they can't just show up and help them. So it's a win-win. It doesn't hurt to at least try. There's no strings attached. Be sure to follow Farm Rescue on all their social media pages, as well as check out their website. I'm starting my 90-minute trek home. I greatly appreciate every single one of you continuing to tune in and support the channel. Your viewership means the world to me. I'll catch you all in the next episode. Until then, make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment down below if you have any questions. You know I'd love to talk about farming. Have a great day, everyone. Peace!